The event I'm covering in this video has been little more than a footnote in the history of Dodge City, but as it involves famed lawman Bill Tilghman and serves as a snapshot of life in a frontier town, I think it warrants closer inspection. From the Globe Livestock Journal, Dodge City, Kansas, October 21st, 1884. The city marshal and a party of cowboys exchanged 25 or 30 shots on or near the bridge about 10 o'clock Thursday night. 6 shooters were used for a while, and then Winchesters. It is not known whether anyone was hurt or not. The marshal's second shot caused a commotion among the horses, and from spots of blood on the bridge, it is thought one of the horses was wounded. When the firing opened, the people along Bridge Street thought, as it was pretty dark and they could not see, that they could hear as well in the nearest house. So they made for shelter, and it was just as well, for the balls came up the street like a young hailstorm, striking in the road on the hill. This shootout, either at or near the bridge, took place on Thursday, October the 16th, 1884, at 10 o'clock. The city marshal in question was none other than Bill Tilghman. In 1884, Bill Tilghman would be 30 years old, and he had spent a good portion of his adult life in or around Dodge City. Tilghman had been a buffalo hunter, a scout for the Army, a saloon owner, the deputy sheriff of Ford County in 1877. But his greatest role in the area would come in 1884, when he was appointed city marshal of Dodge City. The shootout at the bridge that night had pitted City Marshal Tilghman against an entire party of cowboys. We don't know if any of the cowboys involved were wounded in this shootout. No one from Dodge City was wounded, although the lives of civilians had been put in danger. The only confirmed hit during the shooting was made by Bill Tilghman, the blood believed to have come from one of the cowboys' horses. Taking place at 10 p.m., it would have been plenty dark outside, which is probably the reason why nobody on the Dodge side was hit or killed. 25 or 30 shots being exchanged was no small affair. It appears that the cowboys were out for blood. These were not parting shots from fleeing men. They had even changed from using their revolvers to using Winchesters in an attempt to hit their mark. This would have made for a good action scene in a Western, but surprisingly, this is all we know about it. At the time, Dodge City had other newspapers, but I could find no mention of this shootout in the other papers. A biography was written about Bill Tilghman by his wife Zoe, but there is no mention of this gunfight in it. In Robert Wright's book on Dodge City, I could find no mention of it. This shootout would have been perfect to help increase Bill Tilghman's reputation as a feared lawman, and yet there's nothing else about it. I believe this shootout did take place. There are too many specifics, and it was reported by a local paper. That many shots being fired in a small town would be easy to verify, and if that newspaper got it wrong, then the other papers would be sure to point out their competition's failure. I don't think it became much of a news item because, as far as anyone knew, nobody was killed or wounded, and Dodge City, for the most part, had gotten used to gunfights on its streets. So if there's no other information about this shootout, what else is there to know? I believe we can at least theorize about what happened. First, let's talk about the location of the shootout, the bridge. Dodge City is located on the Arkansas River. A reliable bridge was absolutely necessary for the city to function in its early days. Heine Schmidt, early historian of Dodge City, wrote about the bridge. When the historical bridge was built in 1873, Dodge City was less than 1 year old and composed of a few frame buildings along Front Street and numerous tents. The toll bridge was the only bridge over the Arkansas River between Hutchinson and the Colorado state line. Its construction presented the first must situation in the city's history. The buffalo herds had been driven farther south, and the cattle were beginning to trample a path across the green carpet of the prairie of Dodge City and the eastern markets. Thousands of wagons laden with supplies were beginning to wend their way south along the cattle trails, ranches, and forts of the Southwest. The problem that confronted the city was that of providing a bridge over the Arkansas River to permit increasing traffic to enter the city. Every spring, with the thawing of the snow in the mountains, the river overflowed its banks and flooded the lowlands for miles, making it impossible to ford. Even when the water was low, the quicksand made passage hazardous. So, to put it simply, if you wanted to get the hell out of Dodge quickly and easily, and you were headed south, then you crossed over the Dodge City Bridge. Other than Bill Tilghman, no one involved in the shootout at the bridge was specifically identified. The newspaper article only describes the others involved as a party of cowboys. The gunfight took place in late October, which would be months past the busiest time of the cattle season. And there's a good chance that these cowboys were from the South, most likely down in Texas. So when the shootout happened, the party of cowboys had probably already conducted the business they needed to in Dodge City and would start the journey south back home. The shootout took place at 10 o'clock, which was actually rather early in the night for Dodge City, as much of the town stayed up late into the early hours of the morning, enjoying the amenities of the saloons and gambling houses. Something had happened with the party of cowboys that made them not only want to leave Dodge City early, but motivated them in exchanging gunfire with the city marshal. I know of 2 other shootings in Dodge City that took place near the bridge. One involved lawman Jack Bridges and was described by Robert Wright in his book, Dodge City, the Cowboy Capital. The last time the cowboys attempted to run the town, they had chosen their time well. Along late in the afternoon was the quiet time in Dodge. The marshal took his rest then, for this reason. So the cowboys tanked up pretty well, jumped their horses, and rode recklessly up and down Front Streets, shooting their guns and firing through doors and windows, and then making a dash for camp. But before they got to the bridge, Jack Bridges, our marshal, was out with a big buffalo gun, and he dropped one of them. His horse went on, and so did the others. It was a long shot, and probably a chance one, as Jack was several hundred yards distant. The cowboy in question had been killed by Jack Bridges. Another shooting that involved the bridge was in the early morning hours of July 26, 1878. 2 Texas cowboys, on their way out of Dodge City, shot several times into the Comique Theater. Jim Masterson and Wyatt Earp, both peace officers of Dodge City, exchanged shots at the fleeing cowboys as they neared the bridge out of town. One of the cowboys, George Hoy, fell from his horse, being wounded in the arm. George Hoy would die from his wound weeks later. Both George Hoy and the cowboy Jack Bridges shot had started shooting into buildings before they tried to make a run for the bridge. However, in the article about the shootout at or near the bridge with Bill Tilghman, no mention is made of the cowboys shooting up the town and then fleeing. It appears that they were already very close to the bridge when they started shooting. Had they learned from the earlier cowboys that you needed to be closer to the exit if you were to cause a commotion in Dodge City and escape without being killed? Or maybe they had purposely aimed at killing Bill Tilghman, and he just happened to be in the south part of town. In his book, Robert Wright describes Bill Tilghman's service as city marshal of Dodge City. He was marshal under me when I was mayor of Dodge City, and Ben Daniels was his assistant. No braver men ever handled a gun or arrested an outlaw, and Dodge never passed through a tougher time than the year of the big fire, the year I was mayor. It did seem like every bad and desperate character in the whole West gathered here, and when we would drive out one lot, another set would make their appearance. But Tilghman was equal to the occasion. He had many narrow escapes and many desperate men to deal with. Even though nobody we know of was killed or wounded, still, the shootout at the bridge on October the 16th, 1884, was a narrow escape for the city marshal. Enough lead had flown that the newspaperman likened it to a hailstorm. Only because of the darkness and luck, Bill Tilghman and the citizens of Dodge City had escaped harm, and the story of the shootout became forgotten, like much of the violence of the West that didn't make it into legend.